is it one of those things where you find Eddie and it's like, I mean, for a documentary filmmaker, it's like panning for gold and finding giant nuggets of gold. So
I'm not a documentary filmmaker. He told me on set, he told me his retirement plan. I was like, you can't retire, man. I love you. We're doing so much great work together. But let me tell you my retirement plan. He told me his mission. And I said, can I film that? And I only made a documentary. My two friends created the show Avatar: The Last Airbender and Ledger and Korra, and they said, hey, we're doing this little mini documentary for the thing. You want to do it? It's like, yeah, sure. I know these guys. So it was just very easy to hang out kind of like this, made with a camera. So that was easy. And then I realized I took this mantle and this torch to tell this man's story, and I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to end, if he's going to be alive or dead. Is his family going to come out? Like, oh my God. And so I just kind of had this moment of sheer, utter panic. And then I just kind of snapped out of it. And for 5 years, we just did not stop making this movie. But it's alarming making documentaries. I'm sure documentary filmmakers are like, yeah, tell us something we don't know. But not having an ending is the most terrifying thing as a filmmaker you can have.
Anthony Ray Bench here. Today's episode features filmmaker Kurt Matilla talking to Chris and I about his upcoming doc Stuntman. But before we get to that, if you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/filmthreat. There's some cool stuff there, and you'd be helping keep the show going. Also, the Film Threat team will be covering the Sundance Film Festival from Park City, Utah. There will be a ton of reviews on our website, filmthreat.com, daily podcasts for all 10 days of the fest, awesome interviews, videos, and more. Follow us on Twitter @FilmThreat and on Instagram. Now on to the show.
Welcome to the podcast, Kurt Matilla. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Can I tell you, that's a much cooler way of pronouncing it, but it's actually Matilla.
It is Matilla.
But I will answer to Matilla if need be, because I feel like that's kind of badass.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, you sound like that's such a great name for like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
Get Matilla in the car. Come on over here.
I was thinking like Italian gangster.
Exactly. Yeah. It is sort of gang. You didn't realize you had a gangster sounding name.
I had a gangster sound, but then Kurt kind of throws it off. Then they think I'm a German gangster, and then it's just
there's German gangsters. Well, first of all, we should let people know,
sure. Kurt,
you're on the show because you directed a documentary, Stuntman, that just won. I know it won awards at the Los Angeles Film Festival.
Yes.
So what award did it win?
Well, Chris, it won the Audience Award for Best Feature Documentary.
Okay, the Audience Award, just to be clear, the Audience Awards, there's no politics, right?
None whatsoever.
I kind of feel like with some of the other awards, there's a little bit of politics involved, right?
Well, there is.
Yeah. When it comes to Audience Awards, these are the movies that the audiences like the best. Mm-hmm. That's why I feel like Audience Award, that's when I perk up with interest. Because Audience Award, to me, is pure in the sense the audience just said, we like this movie. We like this movie the best of all the other movies. So how does that feel to first of all, Los Angeles Film Festival, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's my only issue with the Los Angeles Film Festival, it's too far on the west side. I want more ArcLight Hollywood screenings.
They were spread out geographically to 3 different places. They had like ArcLight Hollywood, ArcLight Culver City, Santa Monica, and you talk to like the people who are running it, and they just look so frazzled. It's like, how do you maintain geographic control of these 3 theaters that are not next to each other at all? So
it's just
God
way
bless
too
them.
much chaos.
It was so much chaos.
But you know what? But that speaks to sort of the diverse nature of Los Angeles as a city itself. I mean, it's this is why I love living here, right? It's just like, each little area has its own personality, whether it's Silver Lake, Los Feliz, Hollywood, West Side, whatever, North Hollywood. They all have sort of these distinct personalities.
With staunch supporters in each of those neighborhoods, without a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. But, okay, so your film Stuntman.
Yes, sir.
Is...
Have you seen it? Have you got a chance to see it?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Okay, because we booked this before you saw it.
Yes,
so I'm
of course.
sitting down going, let me see if I can read Chris, because he's got very distinct opinions on things, and I'm going to see if, and I don't know if he likes this thing or not.
Yes. First of all, love the film.
Okay, let's get that out of the way right now.
Because
I can relax now.
The main subject, this guy, Eddie Braun, is sort of facing this guy is a grizzled, you follow this guy, Eddie, through his daily life as being a stuntman in Hollywood, which is a totally underappreciated, craft
Yep.
in the industry. So you follow him through doing what I remember as a kid. I'm old enough to remember when this happened, when Evel Knievel was in effectively a rocket.
Yeah.
What is it called? Is it the X Sky Cycle X2?
X2 Sky Cycle, yes,
The
sir.
X2 Sky Cycle. He was going to go over the Grand Canyon, right? Was that?
He was going to go over the Grand. That was his plan. He was like,
Right.
"My God, I'm going to do the Grand Canyon." And then the Secretary of Interior was like, "No, sir, you're not." And so he kind of went on to go. He went location scouting, as any true showman does, and he finds the Snake River Canyon, and he goes, "Oh, this is the one I'm going to do. I'm going to build a rocket." And goddamn, he does this great speech. He does this, and if they'll have to shoot me down with a rocket, with a missile, to not let me do this. So he makes this bold statement that he's going to do this thing. The reality is, much like our current president, he kind of just kept doing this huge campaign. He's going to do this. He's going to build this wall. He's going to do this. He's going to do it. And then the day came, and you could kind of get the feeling that he was like, "Oh shit, I actually got to do this now." and he's got fear on his face, and he's not acting. Like, you can see all the news clips. Like, he's like angry and he's freaked out. And the rocket, it was an ex-NASA guy who he was like the Elon Musk before his day, a guy named Robert Truax, built the rocket. And he helped, start NASA, of all things. And so you could see Evel getting in this thing. And, of course, he launches, and the legend is either he pulled the parachute too soon or he blacked out, but there was a malfunction where the chute comes out too early and he falls into the canyon and crashes but lives. And my argument is, well, you're going to die probably more drowning in the river, so why would he have pulled the chute too soon on purpose? Like, that didn't seem like the good exit strategy to, go through with the stunt. So the odd thing about that is that was his kryptonite. His career sort of went downhill after that. He had a toy line.
No, dude.
The Ideal Toy Company.
I had the Evel Knievel toys when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it was a toy that, okay, you had this thing where you'd put the motorcycle in this little charger thing, and you'd wind it up, or reach a certain point, then you'd click this lever, and boom, Evel Knievel would just take off. And he did, you had little things, you could do jumps and all this.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Except all of my friends, what we did is we took our Evel Knievel dolls, we tied a string to it, and we would whip it in the air and throw it, and eventually get to a point where the toy was so destroyed, you would end up blowing it up with firecrackers. Or I grew up in the Midwest, so that was a big thing.
A lot of firecrackers.
Firecrackers and burning fire and melted rubber. I distinctly remember the smell of melted rubber. But those toys, and am I imagining this, or was there some cartoon show?
I got a deep cut for you. Okay, so there was a cartoon called Devil, and that was sort of based on this. But I got into comic books because one of the first comics I picked up was a Marvel comic in '82. It was called Team America, not to be confused with the Trey Parker.
Right.
So Team America, everyone kind of looked like Evel Knievel. These three dudes, they sometimes teamed up with Ghost Rider, and they went on adventures. And they came out with this toy line. It's like, oh, it's cool. You wind it up, and it goes, and you realize, oh, the Ideal Toy Company had these molds of Evel Knievel toys, but because Evel Knievel beat up his promoter on the Fox lot and was jailed, you really can't sell toys of a guy who's in prison, so they had to cancel the toy line. They're stuck with all these molds and toys and action figures, and what the fuck are we gonna do with this? And so they call it Marvel and go, can you kind of come up with a little something? They came up with Team America, which was basically a way to repaint all the old Evel Knievel dolls, and then I got into comics after that and stuff. But I just missed the original launch. I was one, but like you, I remember going to Toys R Us, and all the Mego dolls were there, the old Captain America, the old Spider-Man, and then Evel was next there too. And as a 2-year-old, I'm like, why is that guy on Johnny Carson, but Spider-Man's not real, but they're in the same toy aisle? It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, so Eddie, my stuntman friend who I met, decided he met Evel Knievel as a kid, right here in beautiful Los Angeles. He saw him launch, and he went up to him and he met him, and it was just the old me, Joan Green kind of thing. And he goes, and he inspired him to become a stuntman. He's like, I want to be like Evel Knievel. Well, you can't be like Evel Knievel and make money unless you become a stuntman. So that's what he did. And so he said to me, he's like, I'm going to retire now, because he's now he's been doing it for 30 years, and he goes, I want to retire from this business honoring the man who got me started, and that's Evel Knievel. So in this real life comic book story comes to me, and he's like, I'm going to avenge him, and I'm going to complete the mission that he started back in 1974. And I was like, where the hell do I sign up? Can I film this, please?
I mean, first of all, it's incredible. I mean, first of all, just the story of stuntmen in general. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple stunts that you show early on in the doc where, I mean, he's in a car, and you see him a little kind of not all there from it. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like. I mean, I've been rear-ended.
No, that's
I've been
exactly
rear-ended.
it.
But to be in a car that flips over.
To be rear-ended and know that it's coming. That's the thing that's crazy. You roll the cameras, you know you're going to get into a car wreck. And that's one of the things that sobered me up when he's telling me.
Exactly. I mean, and also, you might not live. So you're seeing his, this is the job, right? The job of stuntman is to do this. And then to take on the challenge of, I'm going to complete this stunt. But I vividly remember as a kid watching, I mean, the build up to that was just insane.
Right.
And then having it, I mean, the rocket went off, but as you talked about, he failed in that attempt. Yeah. And then now to see it recreated, I mean, it was like this incredible full circle thing. And so,
you added to the legacy,
Right. Now, how did you meet Eddie? He's a friend of yours? But this is what's cool living in this city is you become friends with someone, and you could become friends with someone they work on all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. Well,
so how'd you guys meet?
First of all, I love Los Angeles too. I moved here in the mid-'90s, and I've been in love with the city. I'm a staunch Los Feliz Silver Lake supporter. Getting back to that,
see, this is. And, I feel like we've both dined at what is that? Fred 62.
Fred 62. I was 62. There the third night that they were open.
Macaroni and cheese, the deep fried macaroni and cheese balls are to die for.
And Mess Hall, where it used to be the Brown Derby, where all the Swingers movie was shot.
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
I love that place.
It's now Mess Hall, fantastic restaurant.
There's the Bigfoot Lodge.
Yeah, Bigfoot Lodge.
What I'm saying is, I bet that we've drank in the same place.
We must have. You look familiar.
Absolutely. Okay.
So I had been directing commercials for a bit, and I got my first big car campaign, and random guy, my AD, a guy named Lee Blaine, is like, you need a stunt driver for these things. Like, great. And so I meet Eddie on the set, and he's the nicest, warmest dude you could ever possibly meet. And I'm like, hey, Eddie, in this shot, you're going to take the Mustang and just kind of slide up to the lens. And he's like, great, that sounds fantastic. And he was so excited and so enthused. Meanwhile, I have no idea at this point. He started jumping the General Lee at age 19, doing the Fall Guys truck.
Really?
He did such crazy stuff up to this point, but he was so humble and sweet. He made me feel like that was the greatest idea you could possibly ever do with a car and a camera. I'm like, oh wow, So I immediately loved this guy, and we start working. We did like 3 or 4 more campaigns, and and his job is to make sure the car, you're driving the car to the camera and all that stuff, and any of the kind of
so that's got to be a challenge unto itself. Okay,
absolutely.
Maybe not a stunt in terms of you're going to die, but you could die from the insurance, that extra insurance you have to pay from destroying a red camera, right? So you have to drive the
The human element will always be needed, and the stunt that you even mentioned that opens the film. With movies, we have the suspension of disbelief. We're watching fiction. No one got hurt making that, right? And I learned through Eddie right away, you get hurt all the time. You just can't get injured, as he would say, because if you get injured, you're out. But make no mistake, you get hurt. And so what you saw in the beginning of the movie is something the fellas, the stunt guys, call the cannon roll. And in car chases, in order to get the right effect, they have to drive with a bomb in the back of the car. And that bomb is connected to a remote. And at a certain point, he's going to slide the car, hit this bomb, explode himself. But the reason why you need the human element, because it is for camera. He needs to make sure there's the lens. Okay, I got to slide it this way, make sure that looks good. And then after it flips and rolls, he says, if I don't black out, the next thing I need to do is make sure I take my foot off the gas and take the keys out. Because if it lands on the wheels, it goes right into the crew and kills everybody. So there's this crazy thing, because people are like, why don't you just do it CG or remotes? But you can't, because you need that human element to gauge where the lens is, where the crew is, and then once the stunt is done, make sure that no one else kind of, gets injured when it's over. But that's what happens just to get these action sequences, and they really do get hurt all the time. It's like, I'm not saying now watch your favorite Hollywood movies with oh God, but at the same time, you saw the footage. We put GoPros in that sequence, and it looks like a NASA experiment gone wrong. I mean, flames are going everywhere. He gets knocked out. It's just it's nuts. So,
and that's just that's just a day at work. I mean,
at the office.
How many concussions can one person handle
I know,
at that
right?
point?
Well, you can see why he wanted to retire after a while. So,
well, I mean, it's just. I mean, like his insurance has to just be kind of crazy. There has to be like special insurance premiums for someone who's a stuntman just to survive in the industry and have some kind of career, right? Like
he's got a doctor that I couldn't get on camera. He didn't want to be on camera, but he was basically like, you know, in those movies where like the guy that has to fix the you know, he brought the car back, it's all smashed up, but he knows what's wrong with it. Like he's been working on Eddie for like the past 20 years. He's replaced knees. He knew everything that was wrong with him, but you know, he didn't want to go on camera.
So he's like the $6 million man.
He's the $6 million man. This was the guy. You know, they had the technology put him back together again.
So now, how is it one of those things where you find Eddie and it's like, I mean, for a documentary filmmaker, that's like it's like panning for gold and finding giant nuggets of gold. So
I'm not a documentary filmmaker. He told me on set. He told me his retirement plan. I was like, you can't retire, man. I love you. We're doing so much great work together. But let me tell you my retirement plan. He told me his mission. And I said, you know, can I film that? And I only made a documentary. My two friends created the show Avatar: The Last Airbender and Ledger and Korra. And they said, hey, we're doing this little mini documentary for the thing. You want to do it? And it's like, yeah, sure. I know these guys. So it was just very easy to like hang out kind of like this, made with a camera. So that was easy. And then I realized I took this mantle and this torch to tell this man's story, and I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to end, if he's going to be alive or dead. Is his family going to come out? Like, oh my God. And so I just kind of had this moment of sheer, utter panic. And then I just kind of snapped out of it. And for 5 years, we just did not stop making this movie. But it's alarming making documentaries. I'm sure documentary filmmakers are like, yeah, tell us something we don't know, you know, but not having an ending is the most terrifying thing as a filmmaker you can have. Because we didn't know if this was going to happen, if he was going to jump, or all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, you said you weren't a documentary filmmaker at a time. Now you're an award-winning documentary filmmaker. Now you are, but like, I mean, you're a storyteller. I mean, and that's filmmaking. I mean, documentary is just a different format,
yes,
so to speak. Okay, so building up to this event, this is where, you know, when you realize where the doc is leading and what it's leading to, this incredible event, they're not just challenges of the technical side, because there's a lot of discussion about, okay, the technical, what's going to happen. Here's the levers are colored red, white, and blue, which is really kind of a cool touch. There are challenges with regard to even putting it on, because it was scheduled. I'm trying to remember where it was scheduled, and they canceled it, right? Tell me about that. Just challenges in because it's not a cheap thing to do. You needed sponsors to pull it off.
That's exactly it. You know, when we started, I got maybe a few months hanging out filming, and then all of a sudden he goes, hey, so funny story, a major network now wants to take over and broadcast this thing live during the World Series. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just kind of keep going until someone says stop. We'll take it from here, sir. Right. And then, you know, I'm sure you've been in these situations where you're preparing for a project, and the president of this network basically says, hey, man, to Eddie, we're going to go live. So is your rocket going to be done in time? And he's like, yes, sir, it will be. So he dumps his life savings to finish this rocket because the president of the network calls him. If that's not a green light, I don't know what is. Turned out it wasn't, because they decided to cancel it for reasons you'll learn in the movie. So here's this guy, no life savings, but has a giant rocket and nowhere to really launch it for any sort of platform. So we went back to making the movie again. And then a second network came by, same thing. But I think what happened is the lawyers got involved and said, you know, this guy could kill himself on live broadcast television, so we're gonna not do that anymore. And so we just kind of 2 years, 3, 4 years go by, and we're like, maybe I'm making a movie about a stuntman who's not gonna jump the Snake River Canyon. And then that was, Eddie just called me one day. He's like, I told you I'd give you an ending. I'm gonna give you an ending. I'm a stuntman. I say what I do, and I do what I say. Get the cameras ready. We'll be there. We're going to launch next week. And I was like, what? And now, meanwhile, we're thinking like it's another year before this happens. He just calls me up and goes, get ready, we're going. So I like scraped every last dollar. We got whatever we could to get 14 cameras and drones and all that stuff. But that last sequence was all just us and friends helping out and, whatever camera crew we could get in time before that. And we only had one take to do it. And, fortunately, we got it in the camera. So
what was that like? What was it like you spent 5 years on this. That's the one thing with a narrative film, it's like, okay, we have 18 days to shoot. It'll be done in 18 days. Yeah. There's got to be some level of frustration with 5 years of...
Yeah, like that's it. Because
on again, off again.
On again, off again. Hey, this might get a live event, so just keep filming until someone takes over. But yeah, there's moments where you're just like, until that day he called me and said we're doing it. I wasn't sure where we were going to go. And then the funny thing happens after we shot all that. Then it's like, well, we got to put the film together. And there's an axiom that you echo in this podcast all the time. That is, money is an excuse to not make a movie. And that is absolutely
I've
right.
Said that.
No, I said it. You echo. You say that all the time. I listen to your show.
Oh,
and it's true because I very naively put together the sizzle reel. I was like, oh yeah, someone's going to pay me to edit this thing now. We got this great thing in the can. We're going to go to all these studios. And they're going to say, great. No one is going to pay. Hey, this is your passion project you've been working on, and you want me to now pay you to finish it? Fuck, get out of here. So my girlfriend was just like, you just got to start. And so my background was editing. So I was like, oh, we can't afford an editor. I'll just edit this at night while my day job is going. And so it took about a year to get it done, but again, waiting for money for someone to pay you, we'd not be here talking about a finished film because you were right.
The cavalry's not coming.
It's not coming.
Yeah, that was the Mark Duplass.
Yeah.
It gave a whole keynote speech at South by Southwest. The cavalry isn't coming.
Yeah.
See, I pay attention to you too.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't me.
Yeah,
that wasn't me. That was Mark Duplass.
Yeah.
But it really, but when it comes to like doc filmmakers, to me, are like, it's like doing community service, right? Yeah. It's like, because at the end, even if the film sells for some amount of money or you actually end up getting money, it's still like you basically worked minimum wage, not even that. Some it was like mowing lawns.
You're actually getting money when you're working minimum wage.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This is the opposite of we were putting stuff in.
But this is what, like you have to have that kind of like when you're doing a doc. You kind of have to maintain that day job or that like or like my friend Dan Mervish from Slam Dance. His advice to filmmakers was marry a doctor because his wife is a pediatrician. Yeah. She has the straight day job. Yeah. She makes money as a doctor, and he goes off and makes movies that sometimes he gets paid for or never. So it's an incredible story. How did audiences react?
We had grown men weeping, and that was my bar, man. Like I was very emotional making this film because I lived it, and we were in this bubble for 5 years. So the LA Film Festival was the first time we had it in front of an audience, and that was thrilling because like, all right, this is it. Let's see if we got something here, and that we got a standing ovation. They're freaking out, and the only other moment I knew we were onto something, if I could just digress,
please,
Eddie. Had been stunt doubling Charlie Sheen since the late 80s, early 90s, and they're dear friends. And when I had the rough cut put together, Eddie calls me again with his famous phone calls out of the blue, like, hey, come over to Charlie Sheen's house. We're going to screen the rough cut. I'm like, what? Okay. How's this going to go? And so I show up, and the guy's so sweet and nice. But anyway, so we're sitting in the theater, in the home theater, and we're watching the thing. And Charlie looks at me and goes, I'm sitting next to Eddie. I'm looking at him, but I'm still not sure if he's going to live through this experience as we're watching this movie. And I went, oh my God, that's good. That's a good sign. I think because I wasn't even showing friends this stuff yet, so you have no idea what you get. So from that point, we're like, okay, I think we got something, and then we kind of pulled out more resources and get finishing funds and so on and so forth. But to see it with that audience at the LA Film Festival was just like. It was great because it was shot like a movie. Like not to get too nerdy film school, but I was like, there's so much narrative films that are shot like documentaries. I want to try and flip it and make a nonfiction action film. I know it sounds crazy, but like if I could just, because the content is perfect. This is a man who lived the life of an action star in real life since the early 80s. So if I could just not really direct him or sort of, influence him, but be a true verite Malay thing and just kind of let things happen. And obviously, when the real launch happened, I needed to make sure there was a lot of cameras. But if I could just even edit this, like Truman Capote did in Cold Blood, he's just like, listen, I'm going to tell a nonfiction story like it's a murder mystery. And I kind of was like, all right, let's do that. And the reality is I didn't have to fake that. I didn't have to force the end of the act one. I didn't have to do that turn in the middle where the studio backs out and leaves him hanging. That all happened naturally throughout the thing. So I was like, oh my God, I think we might be able to pull this off, just as a vision for what the thing could be. So,
so obviously audiences loved it.
Yeah.
So is it going to be, are there other festivals? What's the pathway?
The path at this point is there's some interest in distribution, and if we could do a quick little moment of silence and a seance and pray to the film gods who are hopefully listening, I think all that stuff's going to get
table
worked in.
made of wood?
Let's find out. I'm going to channel the spirit of Howard Hughes or somebody, hopefully soon we'll find out where it's going to go.
I just want to make sure that people listening to this are able to see it eventually.
Yes, you will. Next year.
At some point.
At some point next year.
At some
this
point,
will all make sense. What
it will.
about.
It will. But it's also like the pathways for distribution are broad in the sense that even if you don't get distribution, which actually that's not going to happen, but there are other pathways to getting your movie out. I mean, you can put your movie out. You can self-distribute.
Yeah.
I mean, those kind of. I mean, it's great that we live in this day where you can basically take this little iPhone that we have, make a little movie, and then just release it like it's a movie, right? I mean, you can do that. Soderbergh did that recently,
right? 4K on your iPhone.
It's nuts. So I know at some point but I mean, look, a distributor is going to pick this up, but but I also think that playing festivals too works a lot towards, first of all, you might win some more awards. I'm just saying, it could happen.
Okay.
It could happen. So there's another reason to continue on the festival circuit, but it's a good place to be to, I think screening in front of an audience, I say that for filmmakers, there's no better education than watching other people watch your movie.
Yep.
Because you don't need to hear anything. You can feel.
Without a doubt.
In the room, you feel.
Yeah.
How is that there's an energy in the room? Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I don't believe in crystals, okay? But I believe in that there's some energy.
Yeah.
There is an energy when you're watching an audience watch a movie, and when it's your movie, I mean, one, you want to throw up, but two, you can feel like, oh, I know this is 40 seconds of the movie. It needs to be 20 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
So did you have those kind of moments when you were watching it? Was it like those kind of like moments of realization or feeling that energy? Did it validate or?
Absolutely. People, several unexpected things happened. People laughed at a spot that was it funny, but I didn't think warranted that big of a laugh. But then I realized, oh my God, everyone's just so freaking nervous right now and anxious that they just needed some kind of release. The ending of the main sequence at the end, people started cheering, and it was, I could tell it was half, this is a really good sequence, and half like, oh, thank God, or whatever. However, it went, and just getting those sort of bursts of unexpected elation or laughter, only because everyone was just there in a powder keg with us the whole time. But I had done a couple sort of test audience stuff with friends and fellow filmmakers before locking the picture, because you'd be crazy not to,
right, exactly.
When you're working in a bubble. And I did bring in one of our EPs, this woman named Julie Benson. She writes DC Comics and she writes for television, and she also didn't have the emotional baggage of every piece of footage. So it was good to have an outside person go, nah, that scene sucks. Don't put that in there. No, you really don't need that, because so she was our spirit guide to making sure that we weren't crazy. And then after a few of those test audiences, it all kind of worked out. And then to get the main festival, it was crazy. It was wild.
Well, I'm curious, now that you spent 5 years with Eddie, I feel like it's like you guys went through a marriage.
Yeah.
A marriage that ended amicably.
It did.
In a sense.
Yes.
Although it hasn't ended necessarily. No. You've got some insight into stuntmen, how they think. some of these guys have like some sort of death wish? It just seems like to put yourself in that sort of, for a movie and a paycheck, there's got to be something. Like, I'm looking at the stuff that, I mean, he easily in that rocket could have ended his life.
Yeah. Well, the stunt that he does in the film is very atypical. Stuntmen don't voluntarily go, I want to do this for myself to honor stuntmen and honor Evel Knievel. Primarily, it's a job. And after hanging out with these fellas, some of the old school guys and new school guys, they're just they're not crazy. They don't have a death wish. They just realize they're just incredibly committed to the job that they're doing, and they have to be, because they're the only people on the set that if they agree to do something and then suddenly back out, they're screwing a lot of people. Right. So the nature of their business and how they move up is just, as Eddie says in the film, let your yeses be yes and your noes be noes. I mean, the guy's stunt double is Ryan Gosling in a scene. His character has to fall from a bridge, and if stuntman goes, I'll do it. And so $200,000 later, everyone's ready to go. If that stuntman gets up and goes, you seem like nice people. It's a little higher than I thought. I don't think I'm going to do it. And then you've just screwed the entire production. So they have to really commit that they're going to do it. And so they've conditioned themselves to be committed.
Now, here's my question too: is why? I know who Eddie Braun is now. I know Evel Knievel, who's effectively like, Evel Knievel was. He was a different kind of stuntman. He's a daredevil. Yeah. I mean, the other thing about Evel Knievel, he had a cape.
Yes, he had a cape.
He had a cape, so he stood out from the rest. But why aren't stuntmen more famous? Why don't we know the names? Like, I know the names of makeup artists,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Like you just know them, right? So why don't we know stuntmen? Is it because they're portraying? Like, people don't want to know that I'm Tom Cruise's stuntman.
They're part of the smoke and mirrors. They're part of the illusion. Like, they are doubling an actor. So for them to come out and go, it was me, it ruins the illusion. So they kind of they have to be anonymous. As the subtitle is, it's the face you never see. They have to do that. Like, Eddie, starting out, was like, I've spent 30 years hiding my face from a lens, so it's very odd to me to be like, turning around and talking to you, because I'm supposed to be doubling. You're supposed to see the back of my head. But no, the code is like, they're anonymous. They do the job. They get it done. And if you're aware of their work, then they've failed. Like, they've taken you out of the movie. It's an odd thing.
Wow. Is there like sort of an honor among them? Like,
without a doubt, the most thing that they want is mutual respect amongst themselves. Like, the first
anonymity thing, is that
amongst their community. Like the first thing Eddie did when he did this and we finished this film is he wanted to show fellow stuntmen, because that's the person. Those are the people he cared about the most, because that's how that's how that community worked. But one of the stunt guys that's in the movie, this guy Buddy Joe Hooker, he did the famous Hooper jump, the Burt Reynolds film with the rocket car and all that stuff. He did a nice job defining the difference between Evel Knievel and stuntman, and he basically says that Evel Knievel is a daredevil, and the difference between a daredevil and a stuntman is that a daredevil does these wild, wondrous things for audiences, but doesn't quite know the outcome. I don't know if this is going to work.
Right.
But a stuntman, in order to survive and work the next day, they need to know the outcome. They need to know that if I do this, this happens, that's going to do. And then here we go, roll the cameras. We've done this a few times. I think we can get it. And they won't do a stunt if they don't know how it's going to turn out.
They have to be meticulous with every single detail.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I found fascinating as well. I mean, this is sort of a ridiculous thing, but in the planning of the stunts, they just use toy cars.
They use toy cars.
They just use toy cars.
Yeah.
They set them up, and it's like, here, and you see them, and what's funny is Eddie pulls out like this like case where he has all these different types of cars, so they can sit there and plan the stunt. And that's just like, what are they going to do? Is to get out the toy cars. I feel like that's how every Fast and the Furious movie was. The screenwriters used toy cars, because those are the most ridiculous stunts where it's like physics makes no. You don't crash from one building and go into another building unless you're in a Fast and the Furious movie.
Yeah.
So.
Which I'm learning all about now.
Right. Anthony does another podcast. You should tell him about the other podcast you do.
Tell me about the other podcast.
Get a plug.
I've only seen one Fast and the Furious movie. Well, now two, because we started with the first one, but I saw the latest one that came out. And no interest in it. I'm not a big car guy at all. But two of my buddies were like, talking about movies with The Rock, and I'm a big Rock fan, and I was like, yeah, we should totally do a podcast about The Rock. And come to find out, they were actually talking about doing a podcast about the Fast and the Furious. So I showed up, and I'm just like, I've never seen any of these movies. And they're like, well, you're going to watch the first one now. So the premise of it's called So Fast, So Furious, and you can find it everywhere. But the premise is there's that line that Dominic Toretto says, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. So we examine the movie 15 minutes in 15-minute increments.
Wow.
So, like the first episode is the first 15 minutes, second episode is the 30 minutes and stuff like that.
Do you record it in a car?
No.
See, I feel like that would have been...
That's a pretty good pitch. I don't want to tell you to run your show, but that's pretty good.
I feel like doing it in a car. Like I saw one of the Fast and the Furious movies. It was the Tokyo Drift one, which I really like that one. I saw it at the drive-in, sitting in a car. I feel like that's the way. I feel like that's the way you should see your film. I feel like the drive-in screening it be the first
perfect drive-in.
That's a good
movie.
drive-in movie
picture,
documentary.
Double feature with something.
Only release your movie to drive-ins and make that a demand of your distributor.
Okay, yeah.
There's still a few drive-ins left in Los Angeles.
We want them all.
Mission Tiki.
There's the Mission Tiki. There's
the Paramount.
Yes,
that's where all the swap meets are, right? And then they have like a
they do the swap meets during the day.
I don't know about Paramount. I've only been there once.
Well, the thing about the Fast and the Furious, I'm sure you guys have observed, like they're a perfect example of not being beholden to source material. Like,
right.
Oh my God! Like from that first movie to the last, I've seen a smattering of them, and like everyone just kind of like, well, that wouldn't happen in the book. Oh, there's no book. Well, in the comic, there's no comic book.
But I mean, you look at all the major studio releases, they're all based on pre-existing properties,
exactly.
Right? So it's comic books, novels, books. I can't believe they're making another Robin Hood movie.
Fantastic Michael Crichton films that are perfect 70s cinema, like Westworld, that has a beginning and an end, and it's perfect, and someone decided to stretch it out for 37 hours.
So the Fast and the Furious was actually based around an article that was released on illegal street racing.
Right.
And they came up with the idea. Rob Cohen, the director, basically said, you know what, I want to do a Point Break movie, but instead of surfing, I'm going to do it with cars. It literally beat for beat is pretty much
That's the origin story. Because I thought it was like a 50s drag film too, like drag racing.
Oh no, that was just a Roger Corman movie that had the same name,
same title, but it didn't have
it wasn't
any,
a remake or anything like that.
Okay,
yeah.
Wow. So an article, in the newspaper, spawned this franchise.
This multi-million, probably.
So then I'm wrong. It is beholden to source material. They have to go back to that one article. and
I think the person who wrote it gets credit for each movie and gets
Really?
paid. Yeah.
Oh my God.
As journalists, fellas, come on.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen with someone's not going to base a movie on a Film Threat article. Although, wait a sec. No, that's actually not true. True story. John Waters actually came up with Cecil B. Demented after reading an article in Film Threat. He talks about it. There's a video clip of him talking about it. John Waters, this is way back when Film Threat was a print magazine in the 90s.
Yeah.
We did an article where we declared war on Premiere Magazine, and that was the inspiration for Cecil B. Demented I'm not joking.
So much sense.
I've talked to John Waters about this. So I guess, although Film Threat never got credit, although we kind of got credit in the sense that John Waters mentioned it in an interview. So you know what? I'll take what I can get.
But that movie vibes. I read your magazine in the 90s.
Oh my God! Like on thin slices of wood.
I'm
talking about a magazine.
No, I know, dude. I'm in California because of your magazine.
Really?
I'm going to make a bold statement.
Go ahead.
This is not BS.
Okay. All right.
Film Threat changed my life.
Wow.
And I'm not kidding.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. Right. I was at UMass Amherst trying to study filmmaking, and there's one class, and there's 17,000 students trying to get in. This is the early 90s, and I was depressed, and I heard horror stories about NYU. I was too much of a wuss to move to California all by myself. It's not going to happen. But I grew up in Massachusetts, near the Rhode Island border. So I walked into the Student Union bookstore one day, and I saw Martin Scorsese tearing apart an Oscar statue. And I was like, what the hell is this? and it was your magazine, which I later found out was only like the 3rd issue.
Yeah.
And so I pick it up, and you did this wonderful expose on film schools. Like, here's what's kind of good, here's what's kind of good. This one kind of sucks, this one's good. And in it was the Rhode Island School of Design, which I grew up 20 minutes away from, but had no idea there was a film school there. And I went, wait a minute, I could do that. That's near where I live. If I have a panic attack, I can just go straight home. It's close by. This is great. So I transferred into the Rhode Island School of Design. Chris, honest to God, like, that changed my life because of that article. Like, I met all my friends there. I met the guys who, like, we moved out together. We stayed at their parents' house. I got my first job from people I met at the Rhode Island School of Design. My junior film has Seth MacFarlane in it because he was an upperclassman when we were there. Like, I was there
Didn't you meet your girlfriend? Was she wearing a Film Threat T-shirt?
She was not wearing a Film Threat T-shirt, but like, not to get too all Southern California, but like, there's certain moments in your life where you're just like, God damn, I'm glad that happened. Like, I seriously would not have transferred schools and would not have gone to the West Coast if it wasn't for issue 3 of Film Threat magazine. Changed my life without a doubt.
Well, that was issue 3 of because there were different incarnations.
It was volume 2.
It was like volumes. Yes, the sort of. Like,
I'm sorry, I'm explaining your magazine to you. Like,
no, it's okay.
I just realized I was like, Chris, it's volume 2.
It's so funny. Well, there's a much longer story to all this, but yeah. So that was an incarnation of Film Threat that Larry Flint had bought the magazine.
Okay.
So I had licensed the rights, and then I ran it like out of the offices on Wilshire Boulevard.
Wow.
That was doing Film Threat back in the day.
Yeah.
Was putting out that magazine. It was always like, what would I want in the magazine? I was always just trying to like cram it filled with stuff. And it was like, when I really look at it now, it was the internet attitude before the internet existed.
Couldn't agree
more. It was, the things we did could just be explained as being memes, or the way that I was just trying to rethink how we even processed what it was. And I also wanted it to be kind of information overload. And even those old issues, which are now collector's items, we would put flip cartoons on the side. Like, but thank you for
Mad
that.
Magazine thing, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. If I had money every time someone mentioned that, it would be awesome. But like, no, I just appreciate that. Like, I do this because obviously I'm not making huge sums of money doing this thing. It really is like, if you think doing a documentary is community service, doing a
film review
website and podcast and YouTube channel that also covers the same realm is also like doing community service. But I really feel like it's important. It's important to inspire voices. It's important to educate and instruct and give information. Too many, and I'm sure you've experienced this when you meet people in Hollywood, let's just call them assholes, that keep things. I never, ever felt this way. They keep things close to the chest. They're like, well, I don't want to give out my contact at Paramount, or I don't want to like tell you about how I did this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Tell people everything. The best filmmakers or the best people at anything are just going to, they'll do it well or they won't do it well.
We're all in it together.
But we're all in it together. Like, why would you withhold information that could help a fellow creative person? I've never understood that. So I've always been about, fuck it, reveal the secrets. Who cares? This is how this politics works. This is no bullshit way of doing this, as a way to just help people out. So I appreciate that that in some way that issue with Martin Scorsese, which I have one copy of.
Oh.
There's only one copy.
Only one exists. I'm sure
one
mine is somewhere back at my house in Rentham, somewhere where I grew
well,
up.
But
you also did a great article on Firewalk with me too. I forget. It was like a couple issues later. It's like, because I had seen that film by myself in a theater in like suburban Massachusetts, and just pre-internet, so you just I got no one to talk about what I just saw. So it was really neat to kind of read your article about it and go like, someone else saw this thing and reacted to it and all this kind of stuff. So
now we process these things maybe too quickly, right? It's just like something happens. It's the new Star Wars movie came out. We've regurgitated it on Thursday night, and then everybody hates The Last Jedi by Monday. Like, I don't get that. I think that's, I feel like sometimes these things need to marinate, in our heads, and we need to process it. And I think that social media has reprogrammed our brains in a way that has good and also has not good, So There's a documentary subject for you.
There you go.
Are you working on another doc at this point? Because clearly, from this experience, and this has to inspire you to. You do have the day job.
I do that. Well, I became obsessed. Like you. I'm obsessed with Southern California. But after meeting Eddie, I became obsessed with people that could only have been born here. Like who are these people that were forged in the fires of Southern California?
Right.
Eddie Braun grew up in Manhattan Beach around film sets and saw stunt guys and became a stuntman. I finished another documentary short in another spirit of like an LA hero. One of the producers of the film, again, getting back to the money holds things up, this guy Rob Wilson, who incidentally produces all of our Stones documentaries, he came on to help, and he goes, I tell you what, don't pay me, but I want to do this documentary on this guy Bosco, and he does tiki carvings, and it's all about the sort of rebirth of tiki. Can you direct that if I help produce your film? And it was the old classic creative trade.
Yeah.
And it was a great idea. Like we wound up, I met this, I knew nothing about tiki stuff, whatever, and I got to meet this really interesting guy, and we made a 30-minute short. It premiered at the American Egyptian Theater during like the tiki thing. Like 400 people loved it. It's now at the Coronado Film Festival. But I was like,
I got to see this. Is it on Vimeo?
It's on Vimeo.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, we will exchange it. I want to see it from Vimeo.
It's. I didn't know that all that started here in Southern California, and it was fascinating to me that there was this lost civilization of Polynesian pop in LA, and it all got torn down in the 60s. And there's these urban archaeologists that go through and try and uncover where these tiki statues once were. It's this whole Indiana Jones shit. Like, it's really kind of interesting. So,
well, first of all, the bar Hookah has to be in that.
Yeah, well, I used to go to
the
Hookah Lounge was Bosco's Mecca before it got torn down.
Oh my God! And I went there recently
and all that stuff.
I went there recently, and it's just this Chinese bar.
It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, but I would go to Bahuka, and it's got it's in a book, which is this great. I've bought this book so many times because I end up just giving books to friends. L.A. Bizarro.
Yeah.
That book.
Skylight Books. You could pick that up. They still get cut.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I just rebuy it on Amazon or whatever. Right. But it's that is like that's like a multitude of subjects for documentaries, because L.A. Bizarro is all these just weird, crazy shit in Los Angeles, just weird, like restaurants and just all sorts of and Bahuka was like, it was incredible. They had this one drink. I remember going there with my kids when they were little, and it's basically like a punch bowl.
Giant punch bowl.
It's a giant punch bowl, which the ice is in the shape of a volcano, and there's fire in the center.
Yeah.
And it's basically just Kool-Aid, right? It's sugar water.
Yeah.
But they would freak out with
the ceremony of the presentation of these drinks.
Yes, it's all that. It's all that. But okay, I got to see this doc now. Yeah. Wait, what's it called again?
It's called Bosco and the Rebirth of Tiki. It'll be at the Coronado Film Festival, like in November. But I will.
Wait, you're going to the Coronado Film Festival?
Yeah.
Wait, on Coronado Island?
Yeah.
How do I get to go to that?
I don't know.
I've been before.
No, they sent a guy to the Egyptian.
What I'm saying is, I want to go to this festival. Forget Vimeo.
Yeah, okay,
you know what?
We'll make sure we can make it happen.
Fuck Vimeo.
We have tickets.
What I'm saying is, I want to go to this. I do love Vimeo. But what I'm saying is, rather than see your movie on Vimeo, I like Vimeo because I can watch stuff on my TV.
Yeah.
Just sort of throw it on the big 4K TV.
Yeah. I get a little 4K.
That's how I watched your movie.
Oh, cool.
Awesome. But like, I want to go to this festival and see this movie live.
I would love to have you there. It's run by Leonard Maltin and Jack Lemmon's son, apparently.
Is it?
Which is like that's a reality show right there.
We know Leonard. He's one of our. Leonard is a walking national treasure.
Yeah,
that's. I know Leonard and his daughter Jessie. They're incredible. So I know. Okay, I gotta talk to the organizers of this fest.
Yeah.
I want to come see it, not on Vimeo.
Oh yes, that'd be great.
I'm gonna come to the festival and see your film.
Yeah, and
that has the title that I don't remember, and you only told me 60 seconds ago.
Bosco and the Rebirth of Tiki.
And the Rebirth of Tiki.
Yes.
Bosco and the Rebirth of Tiki.
Yeah. Another Southern California guy went to Art Center and is responsible for keeping alive tiki carvings. Like he cracked the code, he figured it out, all that kind of stuff. So,
all right.
But you will also when we have an actual real premiere after distribution for Stuntman,
Then I
by
gotta come
God,
to the-
fellas, we're going to see you there.
I gotta
wear
wear
that T-shirt.
I gotta come to the premiere. I will wear this T-shirt. I will be at the premiere. You got to let me know when that is. Whenever you
the
get
surround sound
distribution,
mix, ooh, it gets rumbly.
because it's got I've got a pretty good setup at my place. I got to say, like I got a pretty decent
Okay,
setup.
he does.
But there's not. But you got to have an audience. You got to
do.
have an audience.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of audience, I have a question.
You guys, yeah.
So, Eddie watched Evel Knievel and got inspired to be a stuntman. So, hypothetically speaking, a child sees your movie and gets inspired by Eddie. Where would that child go when he's old enough to get into this business? Like, is it about networking? Is there a school? Do you have any information on that?
There's both, but I think the schools are like skeptical, like scam kind of stuff. You know, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. He said being recorded, but what Eddie's path, which it seems to be a lot of paths, is you just show up and you're just ready to work, and it's almost like being a PA. They called it peckerneck training, where you just keep hanging out with stunt guys, and it's like boot camp. It's like military boot camp.
Right.
And then eventually they go, okay, why don't you try that little thing? And then you do it, and like, okay, you didn't break your ankle, and they just start trusting you more and more and more, because it's so much on trust. Like they're not going to let you do that if you don't think you can handle it. So the advice I would is read Film Thread issue 3 and move to Los Angeles and just start hanging out with stunt guys, because incidentally, they're the nicest, sweetest people on the set, and if you take an interest in what they do, they will take you under your wing and show and explain things to you, and like a football coach, at some point they're going to be like, sorry, you keep injuring yourself, you're not doing it right, or and Eddie freely admits this, he's afraid of heights and needles and all this stuff, but somehow he overcame those things, and he doesn't like pain and does his thing. So that's what I would. Eddie could give you better advice to the young people. I'm probably steering them in all the wrong directions, but yeah.
Well, if Eddie's on social media,
you could ask him that question.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, where can people find more info about the film or you on social media? So because they may be listening to this now, going, awesome, podcast, and now I can't see the movie. I want to see this movie. Yeah. How do I see the movie? Said the fictional listener that's sitting in their car.
I'm so surprised you didn't do the nerd voice when you were saying
I didn't do the nerd voice. Yeah. See, now I did the nerd voice. Oh, this is great. I want to find out about Kurt's film.
That's a good.
Where can I find out about Kurt's film? I want to know. Where I'm just trying to Google it right now. So where can people find out?
Couple places. The teaser is on the Instagram of our executive producer, Dwayne Johnson, who came aboard and with $7 and his current partner, Danny Garcia. They came.
Dwayne Johnson is his middle name.
The Rock, yes.
The Rock? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, now before you gloss that one over,
that guy.
What was it like because I've met the guy a few times, and it's palpable. He's charisma incarnate.
My friends and I would see him at SmackDown, the Staples Center, late '90s. Like, make no mistake, like I've been a fan of this guy for a very long time. And
if you smoke,
his pre-match talks and speech, those soliloquies were like, oh God, this guy's really fucking good.
Yeah.
So good.
When $7 and Dwayne Johnson, Dan Garcia got involved, we made a special teaser that they put on Instagram. The $7 website has the teaser as well. Stuntman Movie is also on Facebook. I am at Kurt. How'd you say my last name?
I said Matilla, but it's
Kurt
Matilla.
Matilla, and the
Kurt
German
Matilla.
gangster. It's Kurt Matilla.
Kurt Matilla. Now I know it.
Instagram, and then Eddie's on there too. Ask him all his questions. He loves to answer people's questions on that. And we have a website, stuntmanmovie.com. And my God, I hope that within the next few months we'll be able to go like, oh, it's coming to theaters. You'll see it beginning of next year. So we'll know that hopefully sooner than later. So.
Kurt, thank you for doing the podcast.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me,
This is awesome.
man. You guys do a hell of a job and a great show and a service to all the people in the like movies and comics.
Was it all you hoped it to be? I mean, like, it's got to be. Maybe it's a little disappointing sitting in this big
It's
room
actually
here.
not. It solved the great mystery because I would
Please.
listen to the podcast and I could not place what kind of room you guys are in at all.
Oh, all over the
I
place.
went to audio files and go, let's listen to this and analyze these recordings. Where do you think it is? And no one's like, we have no idea. And it's a nice
here.
It's a nice spot.
He's a big fan of ambiance, and
Oh, yeah.
the audio engineer in me is just like, I want it isolated. I want it to sound perfect.
Yeah.
I want authenticity.
Yeah,
I don't want it to be. Look, well, when we finally get to the new Film Thread studio
Yeah.
and we're streaming live on video and doing all that coming sometime in the near future,
Great.
we'll fix those sound problems. I promise, Anthony.
Thank you.
Cool. And Kurt, thank you for coming on the show and talking to us about Stuntman.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You need to see this movie. You need to see this. It's inspiring. It's frightening, and it's an amazing documentary. Kurt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm the face you never see. You see what I do. You're supposed to see our actions, but you're never supposed to see me. Because the star's face is the one you see.